Hi, I'm Violet Van Hees, and this is Grow Your Movement Freedom. Welcome. So today we're going to look at a really interesting response that's inside our bodies and inside the bodies of a lot of animals out in the wild to help us discharge stress that comes into our body and what it looks like. And I'll give you a hint. It involves a whole lot of shaking going on. So about 30 years ago, Dr. Peter Levine, who at that point was a researcher who was researching stress and physiology and the biology of stress and how stress works and how animals and people respond to stress, noticed something really important. He noticed that in the wild, animals in the wild, when they go through a really stressful event, and either like they're being chased and they go into fight and flight and they're, like really high stress, or they're even past that where they go into collapse, like a possum playing dead. When they come out of that, they often will go into a state of shaking in their body. There will be like convulsive movements in their body. It can be their whole body, it could be parts of themselves, and they might go through a period of like a minute of big shaking movement in their body. And he was looking at that and being really interested in that, and he figured out that that's actually a release or a discharge of the residual stress of the situation in the body of that animal. And that after they do that, they are able to return to normal life in a more normal way. And that it's part of their return into normal functioning again. And it's that shaking part that animals will do naturally in the wild, but that animals in domesticity may or may not do, and that humans often don't do. And so then he got into his whole research of what happens to that stress if it doesn't get discharged like that. And that's where he got into his research and his ability to work with trauma and stuff that seems to get into the body and get stuck there. And he's developed a whole body of work called somatic experiencing that's based on that. That's based on helping humans who have had the experience of being in a really traumatic situation, high stress, where that stress didn't get discharged, and helping them go through the process later of being able to discharge it in a healthy way. But what I want to focus on today is that shaking thing that happens, because this is something that we sometimes see, but we don't know what it is, and it makes us really worried. So for example, I think it's part of what happens when someone is in shock after a frightening situation, or they've had an accident, or something's happened and they start to really shake. That's part of their body processing what's just happened to them. And so it's not necessary to have to shut that down, but you can be present with them and take care of them in all the other ways you do, like keeping them warm, keeping them comfortable. But you don't have to be frightened of that shaking thing going on, because it's actually what animals, and in particular mammals, do. And we're a mammal, just like horses, like deer, like lions. All those animals that are mammals have this kind of process in our nervous system that we can use to help discharge stuff coming that needs to express and flow through. The other thing to know is that this can show up at a later time. So for example, when I'm working with people in my Feldenkrais work, sometimes a person will start to shake. There'll be some part of them, either their arms will shake, or one leg might shake, or they may start to shake a bit. But what distinguishes this from a seizure is that they're still with me mentally. And in a seizure, normally, like your brain is short-circuiting, so then the brain is off track, it's somewhere else, and the whole body, the whole being is somewhere else. But when this is going on, you can often stay in conversation with a person. And you can stay with the animal, you can help be there, be a soothing presence while the discharge is happening. So another thing that's interesting to know and is useful to know is that it can be big shaking. It can also be like little twitches. So you might just see a recurring little twitch with someone where you just hear something like this. And that also can be your body telling you that it's still trying to complete something or wanting something to move through so that you can move more easily. And if you can say hello to that in your body, or in the body of an animal or person that you're working with, and say, hi, what is this? How can we work with this? How can we let this come through and be finished? Then often something that's been tight or held or sort of held back in the body can be released, can be discharged. And then some easier movement can come in behind it. Breath comes in differently. Movement might feel different. So there's a great video that Peter Levine has put together. It's a half hour. I've put the link for it right below here. I've also put a hot link for it, a live link for it right in my blog and in my newsletter, so that you can click on that and go see that. It's about half an hour, and at about the 12-minute mark he includes a clip of a polar bear who's been tranquilized. And it's when the polar bear is coming out of being tranquilized and the polar bear goes through these convulsions, where you can see it, you can see what it looks like, and it looks big and it looks weird unless you know what it is. But Peter Levine talks about, and the biologist who's there in the field with the polar bear also talks about how the animal is kind of responding as if they're running a little bit, so they're doing what they were doing just before the event, so to take care of themselves. He was trying to run away, his jaws snapping a little bit, those kinds of things. And that this is a way of the body being able to let the rest of the stress go, complete the experience, so that the bear can get back into the wilderness and be normal bear doing normal bear things. If you're interested to see that, it's about 2 minutes inside that video. I've given you the parameters of where the polar bear is. There's great stuff in front of that about how animals show stress, all the way from playing possum to running away to those kinds of things, so you can see that. And then he talks about what it is that humans do different and why that gets us in trouble. So that video gives you all of that, and that one piece in the middle is the polar bear part, which is really interesting to see, to visualize what this shaking thing can look like. And for me, this was something that I became really interested in when I heard it, because I had seen this in a dog of ours before I knew what this thing was. She'd been spayed, she'd been at the vet, we brought her home, we put her beside her doghouse, I was sitting beside her, and she started to go into these convulsions. Right, and at that point I'm like, oh crap, what's this? And I was, doing whatever I could, and we phoned the vet, and the vet said, well, sometimes animals do this when they come out. He didn't know a lot, he didn't know this stuff either, but he says sometimes they seem to do this. And it might be a response to the anesthetic, or it just might be them getting over the stress of the situation. And now I know that it's likely that she was getting over the stress of the situation and needed this in order to just kind of get back to home ground and feel more relaxed and at ease here. So I hope you found this interesting. I think it's a really, really interesting part of our physiology, and it's important to know about so you don't have to freak out when you see it. If you see a shaking start that seems related to an emotional experience or something, to know that this is part of our body is built to be smart and let this stuff flow through and move on, so that it doesn't end up sitting inside us and sort of getting stuck and affecting our physiology and affecting all the things and having us live in kind of a less than optimal state, just because this stuff is in here instead of having moved out and letting us get back to normal life. So if you'd like more information, or you'd like to see more of what I do, my website is right below here. Please have a look, and if you have any questions or you'd like to get in touch, please do. I'd love to talk with you. So happy exploring with this. I hope this has been fun and interesting for you to know about, and I'll see you next time. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.